I've got some thoughts surrounding the latest Cleveland Browns news, including a trade this late afternoon. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB and the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate you all who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd keeps growing, and I appreciate you all. Be more like the everydayers. Subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available, always free wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. As I said in the open, some thoughts here on some of the latest Browns news. We're going to get to some overall draft thoughts, and these things may pick up a little steam here at what my thought process was here as the Cleveland Browns. Before we get to it all, Cleveland Browns have picked up an additional 2024 7th-round pick. They picked up the 227th pick from the Tennessee Titans. They traded Leroy Watson to the Tennessee Titans late Friday afternoon. We'll get to that. As far as the news yesterday, the Browns and Nick Chubb reworked the deal for 2024. I see, I've seen some being a little critical, wondering, why, this maybe happened to Nick. Nobody's talking about redoing Deshaun Watson. The same people are going to hold the same torches. I understand. There's not an NFL team right now. None of the 32 teams, unfortunately, would be willing to commit $14 million to Nick Chubb for the 2024 season. He is coming back from his second catastrophic injury to the same knee. And he is a running back. It's just the way it goes, unfortunately. This is why, there were these rumblings last spring, all the running backs were getting together on Zoom calls and, basically just, discussing their displeasure with how their positional group is viewed by the NFL monetarily. It stinks. It does. These guys put together, some tremendous numbers, tremendous statistics. It's by far take the biggest beating in the league. It is a very, very dangerous position to play. It's just what it is. From what we hear, Nick's contract has basically been cut from about, add it all up somewhere about, knocking on the door of $14 million. Nick is now guaranteed $6 million and change. A lot of, provisions put into the contract, for Nick to make that money back, in bonus monies by hitting certain escalators, of course, probably carries, yards, touchdowns, et cetera, et cetera. And a difficult deal to, even put together at this point, probably a very difficult deal for Nick Chubb and his camp to accept at this point. Like I said yesterday when we were talking with John Costco, I don't think anybody at this point knows where Nick Chubb is going to be come August, September, and October. And the Browns have to make some important decisions 2 weeks from today when round 2 of the NFL draft starts. They can't put these decisions off any further. They've got to make a decision. But knowing they'll have Nick in the fold somehow, some way, whatever Nick can do in 2024 is obviously a huge, huge asset, a huge, huge get for this team. A lot of talk and connecting the dots that, Greg Newsome will have his 5th-year option picked up. The talk has always been for the last 2 off seasons whether or not the Cleveland Browns would move on from Greg Newsome. It's something I was never a fan of personally. If you're going to move on from someone, first question is, what are you capable of getting? They weren't going to get a 1st-round pick for Greg Newsome. I'm not even sure if teams were going to offer a 2nd-round pick. So therefore, you were going to create a hole at the cornerback position where Greg Newsome has played so well as a rookie. Sophomore year, there was obviously, a little difficulty, him playing more inside, the emergence of the rookie Martin Emerson, but then there were injuries, of course, which also led for Greg Newsome to play some outside. Certainly in 2023, there was opportunity for Greg Newsome to play on the outside. Greg Newsome played solid at the nickel. Greg's really, really done himself some really, really, strong favors as far as, stamping his name for his future in the NFL, whether it is with the Cleveland Browns or it will eventually be something where, he does get traded maybe next season or does test free agency. But, good for Greg. For those who, the trading of Greg Newsome, look, G knew he was going to get this money regardless. If somebody was going to trade for him, they were most likely picking up that 5th-year option. Nobody was going to trade for him and say, oh, we'll go 1 year and then see where we're at from there. So, Greg Newsome got what he, rightfully deserved, and good for Greg Newsome. It was a career so far to this point that started strong as a rookie. The Browns just found tremendous value in Martin Emerson. The Browns love corners. They were never, ever not be monitoring the cornerback market, whether it's, draft, whether it's free agency, trade possibilities. The Browns love their corners. This is a team where your head coach was a former defensive back. This is a team where your general manager was a former defensive back. They are always in on defensive backs, the Cleveland Browns. Now, just breaking a little while ago, the Browns traded reserve tackle Leroy Watson to the Tennessee Titans for the 227th pick in the 2024 NFL draft, now giving the Browns 6 picks in the 2024 NFL draft. Watson's going to go to where, the tutelage and where he was starting, of course, with O'Brien. So he will go back certainly I'm sorry, not Bill O'Brien, of course, Bill Callahan. He will go back to Bill Callahan, continue his work process. Obviously, Bill was able to be down in Tennessee and convince enough people there that he thinks he can maybe make something with Leroy Watson. I don't believe Leroy Watson was going to make the Cleveland Browns roster in 2024, maybe a candidate for the practice squad. So a win-win, obviously, with the Cleveland Browns getting, a draft choice for a player that most likely was not going to make their team. I don't think the Browns have any interest in they have a 6th-round pick and now 2 7ths. I don't think they have real much interest in making those picks. So I do believe that they do have interest, though. And maybe as we're getting closer to the draft, they're starting to read the tea leaves. They've met with a lot of receivers, Ladd McConkey, Tony Franklin, certainly other wide receivers. Are the Browns maybe starting to wonder, hey, 54 might not be in the most enviable position to get a wide receiver. So just bringing in, another asset as far as another draft pick with the opportunity for trading up, certainly if their guy is within range. So, I think that's more about what this move is about. I don't think the Browns need a 2nd, 7th round pick. I think the Browns would like the fact that they would like to have a little bit more ammunition if they do indeed want to trade up, whether it be from 54 or whether it be from 85 or who knows, maybe even that 155 spot where I talked. It's a big drop from 85 to 155 in an NFL draft. That is 70 positions. 70 players are going to go. This gives the Browns a chance to maybe get a little bit higher up in the pecking order at some point. So the Browns, obviously, Nick Chubb's contract redone. G New looking like that 5th-year option is pretty much guaranteed and going to happen very soon. Browns trade Leroy Watson to the Tennessee Titans for pick 227 in the 24 NFL draft. The latest Locked On Browns continues. Appreciate everybody for being along for the ride. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. Of course, I appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. Everyday crowd. If you're not part of it by now, get on the bus, Gus, and then subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. Now, I keep looking, at this and keep going, as much as I can. And look, let's be honest here. This draft class is top heavy. Oh, maybe not top heavy, but it is a weighted class. It is a weighted class to the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, it is just not that deep compared to the offensive side of the ball. There's no question about it. Now, we've talked, and obviously I brought up plenty of players that I thought would be appealing to the Browns on the defensive side of the ball at 54 and certainly at 85. Now, the key here is this can go one of two ways. It could be certainly beneficial to the Cleveland Browns, or maybe it's not. Does the defensive talent dry up very quickly because there is not a lot of top end talent in this draft? Now, again, you don't draft for what your team need is. You draft talent. And even if, oh, well, this guy comes into my room and I already have X, Y, and Z, it doesn't matter. He's a good football player. You figure it all out. It most likely will work itself out eventually. So the question is, does it dry out? And the Browns at 54 say, hey, we had 4 players, defensive side players, that we thought were going to be a real coup for us at 54. In our opinion, they're already drafted, already maybe perhaps overdrafted from where the Browns had him. So, hey, I did like Mike Hall at 54. Mike Hall went 45. I'm not just going to go rush and draft a defensive tackle because I thought Mike Hall would be a good player at 54. Obviously, I'm using an example here. So it could work one of two ways. So if the Browns do want to add, I don't know if they necessarily control that. This trade that just happened today, of course, with moving Leroy Watson to the Tennessee Titans. And look, pick 227 is not going to do a lot of damage for you. You know what I'm saying? You're not going from 54 to 32. Could you go from 54 to 51? Perhaps. Could you use your 6th round pick and get from 50, a 206? So, to get, sure. Certainly a possibility, of course. So it's going to be how it works, and it could work great. It could work where all these teams in front of the Browns say, man, we need an offensive tackle. And there's teams that are going to have 2, even 3 selections before the Browns make their first pick. So, hey, do those teams want in on a wide receiver market? Probably most likely. Do those teams want in on the offensive tackle market? Because these are very, very deep positional groups. Absolutely. So does that maybe give the chance for the Browns to maybe get, that Mike Hall at 54 or another defensive player who they really, really like and maybe are a little bit nervous that maybe that player will not make it to them at 54. So it's a really, really interesting draft from that perspective. The fact that it is so deep on the offensive side of the ball and there's very few solid prospects on the defensive side of the ball. And the ones obviously that are out of the Cleveland Browns range and they're going to go top 20, top 25, whatever. The Browns aren't going to have a sniff of them. But there are a couple of players, Mike Hall, I keep using him as an example because I think he truly, truly fits there at 54 for the Browns. So, does it fall to them? Do they have the opportunity to make it happen? Or is it just, we're going to have to go, there's several wide receivers we like. And obviously we know with the Browns, they've met with a bunch of receivers to this point. And hey, we can get one of these receivers that we like, Troy Franklin. Oh, thank you. I'm sure we're all excited that Ladd McConkey had a visit with the Browns and, Ladd and the Lands. I mean, if you want to start printing the t-shirts now, those suckers will sell themselves. You're welcome for that. I will take a 5% commission fee for anybody who's going to do that. But you think about that, and it's certainly because there's just not much there. So does that mean, does it get overvalued? Does it get overdrafted? Or does everybody say, hey, it's just not a deep defensive class. I'm going to poke at that offensive class. I'm going to get my guys. And then all of a sudden, the Browns get a player that, shouldn't go at 54, ends up at 54. And look, I don't think Andrew Berry's got it's going to be this guy. It's going to be one of these two guys at this position. It's an analytic franchise. That is the way it's run. They're going to say, is so-and-so available? And, that's the way they're going to approach it. And, it doesn't necessarily matter if it's an offensive tackle, a wide receiver, a running back, a defensive tackle, whatever. A couple of years ago, did any of us truly see Martin Emerson coming? I mean, I do remember joining Jake Burns on a show that afternoon and saying, look, if we all know there's one position the Browns aren't ever out of, it's corner. And then all of a sudden the fruition of a Martin Emerson pick came. So, don't be stunned. Don't be shocked. There truly is no straight analytic Andrew Berry blueprint for what he is going to do. And of course, we could be saying all of this, and it could be some real genuine lip service. And then we hear with the 54th overall selection in the 2024 NFL draft, the Cleveland Browns have traded their pick to so-and-so for so-and-so, so-and-so. Do I still want 3 cracks in the top 100? Absolutely. That is something I absolutely would love for this team. I don't know if the Browns have a hole, and we'll get to this a little deeper in segment 3. I'm not sure there's much room for a day 3 player in the 2024 NFL draft to make the Cleveland Browns. Something bad probably would have to happen, which none of us want. And you look at it, but it's going to be interesting the way this draft works, because it's not a deep edge class, which is surprising. It's not a deep D tackle class. The linebacker class is not deep, and the linebacker class most likely will start the actual juice of it. We'll probably start after pick 54 when Cleveland makes their selection. If you love Peyton Wilson, that's fine. Out of North Carolina State, I don't think the Browns have any interest in drafting a linebacker at pick 54 overall, let alone one that is 24 years old. It's just not the way the Browns roll. It's just not the way the Browns do business. So, again, everybody who thinks they know, I think I know positions that the Browns are interested in, but it's all going to be, it's not just that guy. It's not that position. The Browns probably have 2 or 3 wide receivers that they are interested in at 54. They probably have a defensive tackle, maybe 2 that they're interested in at 54. Maybe they value a running back that high. I do. Doesn't necessarily mean that they do. So just a lot of balls in the air here as we get closer and closer. 2 weeks away officially right now from when the Browns would start their opportunity to make picks in the 2024 NFL draft, day 2. But the Browns continue to do their due diligence, continue to get work done. Leroy Watson traded today to the Tennessee Titans for pick 227 overall in the upcoming 2024 NFL draft. Bill Callahan obviously got a little binky, probably somebody that he values highly in Leroy Watson. The Browns interested probably in the offensive tackle market. And if you're going to bring one in, it's most likely going to move Leroy Watson even further and further away from making the team. Your latest Locked On Browns is going to continue, and we'll see just with the picks the Browns have, what could possibly make their team from the 2024 NFL draft. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championship is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Continuing on here, your latest Locked On Browns, your host, Jeff Lloyd. And as always, I appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, you're a bunch of filthy animals, but you're my filthy animals. Appreciate you so much. Join the filthy animals. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. Now, Browns currently holding now, after today's trade, 6 selections. Now, here's the thing, and where is possibly spots where these potential draft picks can make the 53. You don't want to draft a player, and the Browns have had great success with players they have drafted in the Andrew Berry regime, and not just these guys sticking around for a little bit. Most of these guys have seen, what did we learn from the eclipse the other day? Totality. Most of these guys have seen the totality of their first contract. Jordan Elliott, Harrison Bryant, Nick Harris, players that have just left this team but stayed here for 4 seasons as being part of the 2020 draft class. Most of the players the Browns have drafted in the past have spent almost the entirety to this point here. Jacob Phillips was another one, certainly injured quite often, but Jacob Phillips did spend 4 seasons on the Cleveland Browns roster. So when you look at the fact that they have 6 picks, my first question is you're not taking draft picks just to make them. You want these guys to stick around. These are guys that you have faith in. These are guys that you believe in. You understand without a first round pick that, some of these guys need seasoning, need development, need work. And you want to be able to have that time. You don't want to draft a guy in April and say, oh, well, we know he needs a little work. He needs some time. And then come, late August, you're basically just releasing the guy and he's going to go to a lesser team in the NFL, which used to be the Cleveland Browns. That used to be the team that used to scoop up, obviously, on roster cutdown weekend. That's just not the case anymore for the Browns. So last thing you want to do, and this is, if you remember last year, the Browns traded a late, it was either, I think it was a 7th, and they traded that pick to, ironically enough, the Baltimore Ravens, and they took Andrew Voorhees, who was the injured offensive lineman, blew out his ACL at the combine, and the Browns traded that, their draft pick to the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens selected Andrew Voorhees. Me personally, I would have just selected Andrew Voorhees and known he was going to be on IR the whole season. But you don't want to make a pick just to have to punt the player, 4 months later. And, Browns are not stupid. They are a very, very smart and well-run front office. That is no plan that they have either. So the question then comes is, what positions can you draft that would actually have an opportunity to make the final 53? You look at the wide receiver position, obviously Coop is here. You certainly know Elijah Moore is here. We know Jerry Jeudy is here. Cedric Tillman is probably in very good standing as well. I'm not going to knock on David Bell. I thought David Bell played really well in week 18 for whatever that probably means. Did have 7 receptions in the playoff game as well. But with Cooper and Moore currently impending free agents after the 2024 season, you probably believe that, both of them will not be here for 2025. So do you want to get a jump start on that? Jeudy, Tillman, Moore, Cooper, possibly one of them, and then whoever said rookie could be. I think there is certainly a spot for the Browns if they draft a wide receiver, if that wide receiver will make the final 53 and be a part of the team in 2024, even if playing time is limited, even if targets are limited, even if reps are limited. Certainly a position where the Browns can draft a player that will make this team. Tight end, that's pretty much certainty. And the Browns drafted tight end. Could be 54, although I don't know the tight end class lines up very well with this selection at 54, 85. Certainly could draft a tight end there that could make this team. Jaheim Bell, wink, wink. Jaheim Bell, wink, wink. Certainly a player that could make this team. Running back, probably. It's because you have to make decisions now without knowing all about Nick Chubb. So the Browns certainly could draft a running back, and that running back would then be competing with D'Onta Foreman. D'Onta Foreman is not guaranteed a lot of money. Naheem Hines is pretty much guaranteed all his money. Could a rookie running back take a roster spot from D'Onta Foreman? Absolutely. Linebacker, there's probably a spot for a rookie linebacker to make this roster. Certainly is. So that would be one certainly that they could draft as well. Defensive tackle, I know a lot of people come at me, what are you doing with Siaki Ika? Well, did Siaki Ika do enough in 2023 that you said, well, Siaki Ika spot is solidified? You could say it. you'd be lying. And you know it, you'd be lying. Now, secondary, it's going to be really hard for any one of those guys to make the roster. Edge, I don't think they're giving up on Isaiah McGuire after 1 year, and he did get some reps. So my guess would be a tight end, a wide receiver, a running back, offensive tackle, certainly, and then defensive tackle and linebacker. So they do have five? They have six. They have 6 selections. There are 6 positional groups where a player could make this team for the 2024 season. I don't think the Browns are going to make all these picks. I think the trade today of Leroy Watson is just an opportunity for them to maybe have an opportunity always to have flexibility going up or going down. It is what Andrew Berry likes. And the other thing that Andrew Berry likes is future picks. And I think that's what you got today from the trade for Leroy Watson. Just gives the Browns more ammunition to handle this draft, and certainly gives the Browns more ammunition going down the road as far as further NFL drafts. Got to a ton here today. The Nick Chubb restructure, the strong indications that Greg Newsome will have his 5th-year option picked up. The trade of Leroy Watson to the Tennessee Titans. The Browns get pick 227 in return. We've talked about why defense could be great for the Browns to draft in this draft, or it could not happen at all. And certainly, what positions the Browns can draft that have an opportunity to make the roster here for the 2024 regular season. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host here of Locked On Browns. I appreciate you all so much. The everyday crowd, you guys are amazing. Join the everyday crowd. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.